Hi folks, and welcome to another episode of The Franchise Entrepreneur. And today I want to talk to you about mindset. Now, I've talked about mindset a little bit before, but the reason I want to talk about it again is obviously, we're obviously in lockdown, or we're just coming out of lockdown, or it's just been relaxed a little bit. But our mindset going back into work, and the mindset that we've had during this lockdown, and how important that is in our businesses and what we do on a day-to-day basis. Now, we've all been reading probably more than we've ever done before during this period, or re-educating ourselves, or just filling time. And I've been reading just the same as the rest of you on a lot of development books. And I came across one that was really interesting. And it gave me a different slant on mindset that I'd never really thought about before. Now, we all read stuff on positivity, and we all know how important that is. But what I didn't know, and there's been a lot of testing done on this in America in particular, that negative thoughts are actually so much more powerful than positive thoughts. Now, I kind of knew that anyway, because, when you tend to have a lot more, probably the way in which our minds are set and the way in which our biology is set, that we tend to have negative thoughts, or a lot more than we probably do on positive thoughts, simply because it's helped humans exist throughout time. We're always looking for the what could go wrong, and it's a natural instinct for us. So that's how we're wired. So it's how we're naturally wired. But what I didn't realize was exactly how much more powerful negative thoughts are compared to positive thoughts. Positivity in most of us, we have, and we try to aspire to, we try to make sure that, it's the thing that we keep on talking about, a positive mindset. Everyone talks about a positive mindset. But what's more important, and where you're going to get more traction from, is actually controlling the negative thoughts. It's not about jumping from a negative to a positive straight away. It's about controlling the amount of negative thoughts that you have, and also putting your mind into a neutral state, and then moving on to the positive thoughts, which I thought was really interesting. And when I talk, I didn't even know about a neutral mindset, by the way. I'd never even heard it mentioned before. Now, think of your car as a good description. You've got forward gear. Obviously, I'm talking about automatic here. A forward gear, a neutral, and a reverse. So if you think of the forward gear as your positivity, your neutral as your neutral mindset, and then your reverse as your negative. You don't go from negative straight to the positive. You go through the neutral. And that's where people have got to get to more often. Now, again, reading this book, and actually listening to the podcast. I haven't actually finished it yet, but I thought it was really, really a good subject to work on, particularly where we are at the moment with the virus. And it's certainly something that I'm going to be working on. We all have negative thoughts. We have more negative thoughts than we ever do on positive thoughts. I don't care who you talk to. If they're telling you that all they do is think about positivity, then they're talking a load of shit. Right? We all have negative thoughts. They might be small negative thoughts. They might be what you might deem as unimportant at the time, but there's still negativity. There's negativity in your world. Every time you turn on the news or look on the internet, there's some negative things there, or people you hang around with. There's some negativity around you. So the trick is to manage that negativity. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm sure I'm not the only person that does this. I'm sure there are other people that do this. In fact, when I'm driving a car and I see people, their mouths moving in the car next to me, I'm pretty sure that they're not just singing along to music. They're talking to themselves. They're going over things with themselves. I can sit in my office and I will think out loud. I'll talk to myself. I'll go for a walk and I'll be talking things through, and not just in my head. I'll actually be saying them out loud. Now, one of the things in this book, it says that negative thoughts are 4 to 7 times more impactful on your state of mind than a positive thought. Now, they've carried out all these tests, etc. And apparently this is a proven model. So, it's not my word. I'm not just pulling these figures out of the air. This is apparently, I don't know how they've done it, but they've proved that this is the case. It's 4 to 7 times more powerful. That's just a thought in your head. But apparently, when you actually say that thought out loud, you materialize that thought, it actually goes from that to 40 to 70 times more powerful. So the worst thing that you can actually possibly do is say negative thoughts out loud. If you get yourself in a negative mindset and you convince yourself that, oh my God, I'm having a really bad day. Oh God, I'm dreading going to this presentation. I'm going to make a real mess of it. Oh, I'm worried about it. It's going to go all wrong. I'm going to make this mistake. This is going to happen. Or if you're a sports person and you're envisaging, I don't know, missing a penalty or something like that, and you start telling yourself that, the worst thing that could possibly happen is if I miss this penalty in this game in the last minute and we lost the game. The chances are that if you got a penalty at that point in the game, you have already convinced your mind that you're going to miss that penalty. You are 40 to 70 times more likely to have that come true or that negative effect to happen. So the worst thing that you can do is say a negative thought out loud. We all have negative thoughts going through our head, and those are really difficult to control. But the one thing you can control, 100%, so if you do nothing else today, or this week, or when you go back to work, if you do nothing else but control what you say out loud, then you will make progress. Because you would take away that equation 40 to 7 times more likely to happen. Even listening to the news, apparently you're something like 27% more likely to put yourself in a negative mindset by listening to the news. Well, if that's the case, then don't listen to the news or minimize your exposure to the news. You still want to stay informed over things, but you don't need to be checking the news every 5 minutes. I'm a sucker for that. I tend to go online and watch the news and listen to the news probably 4 or 5 times a day. Well, I'm certainly going to stop doing that. I've always known that it can have a negative effect, but not to that degree. A quick check once a day is more than sufficient, I think, for the news, or even every couple of days. Taking that negativity out of the way, it's something that I can control. It's something that you can control. You talking out loud negative thoughts is something you can control. A negative thought that pops into your head, now that's human nature. We've all got that. That's how we're wired. It's how we're built. But how we deal with that is something that you can control. And the speaking out loud of it is absolutely paramount to get into a positive mindset in the first place. We haven't even talked about the positive mindset, and I'm not going to, because you need to do these things in order to even stand a chance to get to that state of mind. For some of the most successful people in the world, apparently, again, through these surveys and through this research, the differentiator between someone being successful and someone just being ordinary is as small as about 3 or 4%. And the 3 or 4% is your mindset. Their mindset is slightly different to someone else. And one of the big things that they control is the negative area. They don't expose themselves to negativity. They don't surround themselves with negative people. They don't listen to the news constantly. They don't say negative things out loud. They still have the same negative thoughts that you and I will have because they're wired the same way as us. But they certainly don't say them out loud. So, the biggest thing that you can do is that neutral mindset. And this is where this comes into play. And I hadn't even heard of this before. That apparently if you've got nothing positive to say, if your mind is pushing out some negativity, if you've got nothing positive to say, if you're in a conversation and you've got a negative mindset, then do not say anything. That's your neutral mindset. If you've got nothing positive to say nothing. That alone will help start to turn the tide on the negativity. As I said, you're 40 to 70 times more likely to magnify negative thoughts by talking about them, which I find is amazing. And I'm assuming that this is all true, that the research is true, the surveys are true, that this is all accurate. It's a very well-respected podcast, a very well-respected expert that's been talking about all this. I'm certainly going to do this, the neutral mindset, because we all do it. We all do it. We all convince ourselves that we're going to have a bad day. We all convince ourselves that, the shit has hit the fan. I mean, this pandemic is a classic example. How many businesses have we seen on social media saying that, this is killing them, this is going to finish them, that they're not going to recover? They're already decided they're not going to recover. And most of those businesses won't recover because they've already said it out loud. They've not said anything positive. They've not even got into the neutral state. And as is said, and I'll repeat it, if you've got nothing positive to say, then don't say anything. The last thing you want to do is say something negative and be 40 to 70 times more likely to magnify that. So especially in the times that we're in at the moment, it's really important to, if you can't have a positive mindset, then have a neutral mindset and manage those negative thoughts. Limit your exposure to the news. The good news is that because we're all being in lockdown, you won't be surrounding yourself with negative people. But obviously, you're doing Zoom meetings and things like that. Well, at least you can be picky and choosy on who you have a conversation with. Talk to positive people. Do not put negativity into your life. There's enough of it there already. And the way in which we're wired, we have enough negative thoughts anyway. So if the separator for the top 3 and 4% or 5% of successful people is that they can control the negativity around them, then that's something that we can all do. It's a very, very simple. This is what I loved about this podcast. I love podcasts that give a very simple message. And this was simple. He's basically just breaking it down and saying, look, okay, you're all looking for very complicated reasons of why the top 5 or 6% of people are very successful. Well, one of the main reasons that they're successful, forget about the hard work and the fact that they may be naturally talented as well. But one of the main reasons is how they deal with negativity, that they will put themselves into a neutral mindset if they can't get to the positive mindset. It takes the time to get to positivity sometimes. But the last thing that you need to do is be stuck in that merry-go-round of negativity. You've got to get to neutral before you can get to positive. And if you can do that, then you've got a much better opportunity to get into your optimistic mindset, which then propels you forward. No one's optimistic all of the time, 100% of the time, not even the most successful people, but it's how they deal with the negativity that's around them. Because it does seep into everyone's life at some point or another. You can't help it. As I said, it's the way in which our minds are wired. But if you become expert of controlling that and get into that neutral state of mind, then you've got a much better chance of getting back into the optimistic state of mind and then being able to move forward. Very, very simple, but very, very powerful. After all, your mind is supposed to be an asset, not a negative ball and chain that holds you back. So, this wasn't the podcast that I planned to do, but I replaced it with this one simply because I thought that the message was really powerful. And in the period that we're in at the moment, I think everyone needs some help to take the positives out of what's happening. And I just found this really, really helpful and really useful. I didn't realize that negative thinking was so much more powerful than positive thinking. And the way in which our minds are wired is that we naturally gravitate towards the negatives than we do the positive. So it's massively important to be able to control the negative thoughts, even more so than the optimistic side. Because if we're hot wired to be more negative than we are positive, to get into that neutral mindset is just so much more important. And it's so much more powerful, 40 to 70 times more powerful and more likely to magnify a negative thought if you say it out loud. I would never have known that. I didn't know that a negative thought was 4 to 7 times more powerful than a positive thought. I'm not sure how they measure this, but apparently it's all carried out in research. It doesn't, now that I've said it and now that I've listened to it, it shouldn't really have surprised me, because we've all been in the negative places before, and we know how powerful it is. And we know sometimes how difficult it is to get out of that negative place. So if this does anything to help anyone, then I think this is worth talking about. And it's just so simple. You know, if you've got negative thoughts and you've not been able to snap yourself out of it, it's simple. Don't say it out loud. You are putting yourself in a much better position if you don't say a negative thought out loud. And that alone is good advice. It's simple. Some people might say obvious, but I didn't think it was obvious. And if it was obvious, I've still done it on a regular basis where, you know, even walking a dog, if I'm having a bad day, I've said things out loud that have been negative. I'm hamstringing myself straight away by doing that. So don't do it. No, don't listen to all the negativity around you. Don't put yourself in a situation where you've got negative people around you. All of those little things are in your control. It's not about the world impacting on you. You're in control. And if you don't do these things, then you've got no one else to blame but yourself. And these are such simple little tweaks to your life that you can make that will make a massive difference. And now I'm more aware of this. I'm just going to keep on telling myself every single day about, and reminding myself to get into that neutral state of mind if I have any negative thoughts that crop up into my mind. And I'm certainly not going to say them out loud. So look, I hope you found this interesting. I'm going to do a LinkedIn post on this as well. I'm going to put some details of the author of the book in the notes for this podcast. I recommend you listen to him. I recommend you read his book. I'm just about a quarter of the way through the book, but you know, coming across some of these bits of advice, I think I had to share. I think they're really mind-blowingly simple, but mind-blowingly effective. So take care, stay safe, and I'll talk to you again soon on Franchise Entrepreneur.